It's Mental Health Monday with Hope, a sanctuary where hearts can find solace. Together, we stand strong, united in our journey, discovering the strength within ourselves. Have no fear, for we're not alone.
And hello, welcome to Mental Health Mondays with Hope. I hope everyone is having a great week. I know, my whole life people have used my name as ways to say things, and I do it too. So I hope you don't mind. But I'm really looking forward to today's show because typically, obviously, I'm a mental health practitioner. So, the mental health topics, I'm usually very familiar with things that we're talking about. We're going to talk a little bit about autism tonight, but we're also going to talk about something called speed friending for adults who are on the autism spectrum. So that is something very new to me, and I am very excited to learn about it. I mean, we've all heard of speed dating. So let's see if it follows the same premise. We are welcoming this evening Michelle DeMarche, and she's going to tell us all about it. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. So I always like to start my shows with a positive affirmation from my guest that starts with I am. So what can you share with us?
I am just thankful to be included.
Oh, I like that. And, one of the reasons that I do this is because, we're always, in general, if I said to you, what was the worst part about your day? What is your least favorite feature? We're all quick at like, oh yeah, I know that. If I say, what is your most favorite physical feature about yourself, or what was the best thing that happened to you today? It takes us a minute to think about it. So I try to get us into that mindset to where, we need to think about the positive things in our lives, and it makes life go a lot better. So tell us a little bit about Michelle.
Well, I am a behavior specialist, and I have been for almost 20 years. I've been in behavioral health for over 20 years. And I'm a regular Pocono person. For the locals, I, have my kids grew up here, and I'm pretty vested in this community of the whole Pocono area. So it was always very important to me as I was meeting families and things to be able to spread community activities that were going to be fun or valuable to anybody who could access them.
Right. Go ahead.
No.
Okay. So now, do you work specifically with autism?
Yeah. So I have done work with other issues in the past, but I really have started to really focus on autism, things on the spectrum. There's some ADHD kiddos I work with. I've really kind of stopped working with those kiddos with more severe, not more differently severe mental health issues, such as like ODD and kids who have gone through like foster care system. That is, I find, to be very difficult. And I bet you that probably goes more into the stuff that you're more familiar with the trauma. And I really started to go towards autism, learning how to speak. I really am an ABA provider. That's how I started. I work for a company called ABA Support Services currently. I used to be very involved when we had a local organization for 10 years. It was mine. It was called PAC. It closed after the pandemic, unfortunately, but I've stayed in the same field, and I was with other companies before that. But one of my more important things that I thought was more important was like the social skills and the opportunities for people to meet and get together.
Right. Is there anything in particular that guided you toward working with autism and ADHD? I mean, besides, like, I know you said about the different diagnoses, but was there a reason that you were drawn to that?
It's something I always wanted to do. And I wasn't as familiar with even what it was when I was younger, but I always said I wanted to be a special ed teacher. And I think I want to work with people with autism. I have a cousin on the spectrum, and that was important to me to do. But I really still wasn't that aware of it until I got older and I started to learn about it. And I started to realize so many of the people around me that I loved were on the spectrum, but they maybe weren't diagnosed yet, or they were diagnosed, but I was not in on it. And I was like, oh, that's a person I totally adore. And you know what? This is so funny. We worked on that together just because I didn't know it was because they had autism. So it just kind of turned into a place where I felt very comfortable.
Right.
When I was learning how to provide verbal behavior programs for little kiddos who are learning how to talk, I fell back on my education background, and I was like, oh, this ties in with everything I learned in college, and I loved it. And as I work with older people, I am able to tie it in with just life experience, and it's given me a different perspective, and it's something I also love equally, but it's a different, it's like during the day, I'm working with the younger kids, and in the evenings, I'm working with adults and young adults. And so I have two different experiences, and it's both enjoyable and kind of keeps me excited about the field.
Right. That's excellent. Do you feel like I feel that as a society, we're learning a lot more about autism than when
Absolutely.
maybe I was younger. Do you find that now that we're learning more as a society, people are saying things like, oh, I was always told when I was young that that's a quirk, or that's just who I am, or, like, I know, like, kids that got in trouble in school for just being bad kids. Are you finding that more adults are now learning, hey, I really am on the autism spectrum?
I have an adult support group for neurodivergent adults. Anybody who feels as though they land on that spectrum, wherever they might land, is welcome to come to it. And it is the fourth Thursday of every month up in Pike County at the Milford Community House. And the reason why I'm plopping that right here is because that's where I meet people who are like, I'm 50, I was diagnosed at 48, and I'm married and I have kids, but I was at work and I was struggling and I had a meltdown. And after I went through some stuff, my work was lucky enough to keep me. I was lucky enough for my work to keep me. And they realized I needed some accommodations because I have autism, but I didn't know I had autism. And that's just one kind of condensed version of a few people's stories, but that I hear over and over again. People who are older adults who were not diagnosed till they were much older or always suspected. Another one I have, a lot of parents, when they are intaking with me and I'm just meeting them and their kiddos, they're like, yeah, I think I have this too. And then they'll tell me something. I remember one amazing mom had said to me, she's super social and always would talk to me. And she's like, I struggle with social. And I'm like, no, you don't. We have such great conversations, And she said, when I make eye contact with you during a conversation, I am counting how long I look at you, so it's not too long or too short. And we just laughed about it. And she's like, so the whole time we're having a conversation, I'm thinking, look at Michelle. 1, 2, 3. Look away.
Wow.
And I just went, oh my gosh, there's so many things going on in your thoughts where I'm just having a conversation about said topic. So now,
but saying that, like using that example, I mean, couldn't that also be OCD or ADHD? I mean, there's so many like overlaps and fine lines. Like,
she had some other things that she confided in me, but that was the one that I remember just being like,
right.
How are you still talking to me about the subject if you're counting?
that is absolutely amazing. Yes, that is. I mean, a neurodivergent mind.
and that's why it is a spectrum, because you could maybe have more ADHD features, but maybe you qualify for an autism diagnosis because you overlap in one area. Really, to get an autism diagnosis, this is a very simplified explanation, but it's pretty much what it is. You have some communication problem. So it's either you maybe talk too much or you don't talk enough and you need help learning how to talk. So people go, well, that kid talks. Yeah, but he just told you everything there is to know about potty training, and he's 3, and he explained it in detail, including some of the gross stuff you don't want to talk about. And, that is the communication issue. It could be too much or too little. The second thing is going to be some sort of, it might be stims, as we talk about, it could be bouncing of the leg or flapping of the hands, but it could also be lining up of toys. So it might be a stim OCD factor, lining things up, wanting things the same color. And then the third one I had to sit there and go is going to be a social deficit. And that social deficit, now we're already talking about 2 things that might lead to that social deficit. If you are flapping because you're getting too excited, somebody might back away and go, why is that kid doing that? If you're talking too much, some kids might be into it and some kids might be like, that kid's talking too much or talking like an adult. A lot of times when someone's younger on the spectrum, they tend to go talk to adults instead of peers. And again, look very socially typical because the adult's looking at them going, oh, I just had the most delightful conversation with John. And meanwhile, John didn't talk to any kids that day at lunch and at recess. He talked to the aide, he went over and talked to the other teacher, and he talked to the lunch lady. And so it was kind of hard to recognize that there was the social piece, but didn't even attempt to talk to the peers, because when you have a conversation with a younger person, their answer might not be known what it could be. But when you have a conversation with an adult, their answer is going to be pretty predictable. Hey, I really loved lunch. Great. Where you might say that to a peer and they might be like, oh, I hated it. And they don't know how to react to that. So they just choose to go for the adults. They might not even know consciously they're choosing that. So hence you have the social. So when you have those 3 things, like I said, they can look very typical one way or another. And, sometimes it's that you lined everything up and you want everything to be perfect. And so did your parents, and it just fits in with your home. And that's not identified as a thing. But meanwhile, it does cause you problems when you're at school and you have to share a desk and you line all your stuff up the way you like it. And then another peer comes in and messes your desk up and you're melting down over it. And they're like, no, everything's still there. Nobody took anything. Yeah, but it's not in the lines I put it in. It's not organized the way I wanted. So, that's kind of like the little quirks, like you said, that people used to just be labeled as quirky. They wanted you bossy. They always wanted to be the first one in line. Well, it was more that they needed to be because of a social construct that they had that we would work on if you were working with a behavior specialist. But if you aren't identified as autism, you might just come across as someone who's getting in trouble for not listening because you're trying to push to the front of the line. Things like that. And there are definitely a lot of people, there's actually a lot of people who are diagnosed in jail. And I once heard someone say, oh, that's just because they want to get out of trouble. And I don't think that's true. What I really think happens is they are following this list of rules, which have led them on the wrong path. And now they're trying to figure out why they're there, and they get diagnosed. And it makes so much sense that if you are following the things that you were taught, perhaps by a parent or by a not the best influence of a person, and then it didn't work out for you, and now you landed up in jail from it, and then you're going, wait a second, what do you mean? And now you're having meltdowns and things like that. And they end up bringing you in and giving you a psychological and going, oh, this person's on the spectrum. It happens more than you think.
Right. Well, and I would think too that, when you're incarcerated, there is a very set routine that you must follow. There's I do think
some people feel very comfortable. It's funny that you put it that way. Because there is a routine and it is set that way. And I have heard that too about some people who are repeat offenders. They feel more secure in there. They know what the routine is. They know what's expected. And it can be an easier lifestyle for some people. That's a lot of things to think about, but I have heard that as well. Yeah.
I mean, for me,
but if you're breaking that routine that you like to have at home, I'm so sorry. My it's loud in my neighborhood. You're breaking that routine you used to have at home. That can really cause some severe behaviors. And they're, some will be like, oh, well, they're just acting out because they don't want to be in jail and they're trying to find an easy way out. And I'm like, nobody's picking autism for their easy way out. That's just not something that's happening.
Right. Well, if you're used to taking your shower at a certain time every day,
yes,
that's part of your routine. Now you are incarcerated and that is no longer your routine. I can see
you don't have any control.
It would put you into a tailspin.
Yeah.
But I mean,
absolutely.
The flip side of what you were saying is, I mean, taking away the autism aspect of it, is that you become institutionalized. Some people and that rigidity of a schedule, sometimes that might be the only way they can function. So maybe that is, just, it could be, with the diagnosis, but also not with the diagnosis because
it could be other things too. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what is the process of getting diagnosed? Because obviously, this isn't something that, my child lined up all of their stuffed animals by size and color, one time.
Lots of kids do that. No big deal.
Have autism.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously it's something that takes time.
Yeah. And there are, you need to kind of have something in all three areas. That's why I said it was a very simplistic way to explain it. So, and there are a lot of people that might have, we'll go with a quirk in one area, but not the other areas. And they might have a diagnosis or it might be something they grow out of, and that's funny too, because some of it is typical development. Tippy-toe walking, that's one of those, if you see someone tippy-toe walking, often that's a sign of autism. Also, that's a sign of a new walker.
Right.
So, so yeah. So I'm gearing myself the wrong way. What did we say the question was?
Oh, no, it was just like, what is the actual process?
The process. Okay.
Diagnosed.
So depending on where you are in the country, I'm going to give you how you do it here in Pennsylvania, but then an overview. In Pennsylvania, if you think your child is on the spectrum, you would go to your regular pediatrician and you would ask for a referral to a developmental pediatrician. There is a year wait at all the developmental pediatricians in this state.
Wow.
That being said, what you do, this is the secret, is you tell them you want to be on the cancellation list and you call every week, every other week and say, hey, there's no school on Thursday. I could bring them then. Hey, because the squeaky wheel does get the oil. And that has worked with everyone I've ever spoken to that has done that. And I know it's a lot of work to put out to do that, but absolutely, positively, that's going to get you in with a developmental pediatrician. In the meantime, you're also going to ask for early intervention referral from your doctor. And early intervention in every county is pretty quick. They will work with your child at home between the ages of newborn to the age of 3. Typically, depending on what your needs are, they're going to come and evaluate your child. And they might say, all right, we're going to have a speech therapist work with you a half an hour a week. It's not a huge amount of time. Maybe we'll have an OT or a teacher who comes and works with you. So that is not a diagnosis, but it's a service that's available to you at that age. And if you are getting those services, it helps to get you in to get a diagnosis, honestly. Some school districts, not here in the Monroe County, not in Luzerne County, not in Carbon, but like out west of us, if your child is in early intervention, the school psychologist will give you a diagnosis. Wow. I do not know why we don't do it, and I do not know why they do it. So it is one of those things that, out west of us, I know a lot of people, they go through the school district and they get their diagnosis.
Even at a younger age.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, because early intervention is that at the age of 3, it switches to a school-based program. That's across the whole country.
Okay.
So that's when the school starts seeing that kid, and they're going to write an IEP for that child, an individualized education plan.
Right.
And that plan, when your child ages up to kindergarten age, will go with them, and they will, of course, modify it and change it so it's more appropriate for kindergarten. But from the age of 3 to 5, you already have it. It's already set and developed for your child. So I always recommend, yes, start that early intervention. So then, if you are waiting for the developmental pediatrician, but you're seeing some extreme behaviors, maybe your child gets overwhelmed, they cover their ears, they're eloping, they're running off. There's a lot of kids that elope around here. There is, I probably around everywhere, but they are maybe hurting themselves. It's they call it SIB, self-injurious behavior. They're biting themselves or hitting themselves. Or maybe they're hitting a sibling because they can't communicate. They want something. So instead of saying, oh, can I have a snack? They smack somebody or punch somebody or pinch. And these are pretty common things, and they sound awful. And they can be. But they're also very common. Like, we know we have a plan what to do. So then you can call your local behavioral health company, and we would then also have someone who could give you a diagnosis. And then you would be able to go ahead and start getting services. That being said, whatever the developmental pediatrician says is the diagnosis that a company like ours, our psychologist, would side with. They really want their diagnosis first. And the reason why I said you could also go through us is you would need to have Medicaid. So you go to the Medicaid office, basically, or online, and you write, yeah, I might make too much money for Medicaid, but my child has a developmental problem. And they will give you the Medicaid. They make you jump through some hoops, but they'll give you the Medicaid so that the services are covered. Conceptually, it shouldn't cost you more to raise your kid than it costs me to raise my kid. So if your kid has a genetic problem, cancers, autism, ADHD, they do qualify for Medicaid automatically up to the age of 21. And it's really great because it does help financially, and it covers these services, and they can have both your private insurance and your insurance and the Medicaid insurance. So they're not going to lose out on like a specialist that is only through your insurance. But if they go to the local doctor, they pay that deductible for you on your kid. So I'm always like, get that Medicaid, stop fighting it. It's not about money. It's about coverage. And the reason I say this is because services that, like from ours, when you have a child, these kids are seen 30 hours a week. And a deductible on 30 hours a week is a copay. If you have a copay every time that kid's seen 5 days a week, and it's a $50 copay, that adds up quick.
Absolutely.
So and some companies won't even take you unless you have the MA, because they know that adds up quick, and they'll end up not getting paid. So they've basically all switched over to a system where they're like, no, you have to get the Medicaid before we'll even see you. So that is the way if you're a child and you want to get diagnosed. Now, if you're anything over like 12,
let's hold on. Let's hold on a second.
Okay.
Because we kind of talked
I'm speeding through.
No, you're good. You're good. This is a plethora of information, of knowledge. So we've only really kind of talked up to kindergarten, and I don't have any children that young, but my anxiety was already on the rise just listening, thinking, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming for the parent.
Yes.
What can the parent, besides doing all of these things, are there resources for the parent to help them walk? Like, who walks you through this?
Yeah.
Who has your back?
Locally, there are some national groups, and I am happy to link them to your pod later, because I don't know all of them off the top of my head. Locally, there are 2 amazing organizations around here, and that is the Pocono Autism Society and Pike Autism Support Services. honestly, there's such loving, caring parents who've been through it and in both organizations, and they will try their hardest to help you get what you need to get to.
Right.
I hate to say join Facebook if you're not a Facebooker, but their Facebook pages are where you get your info. I'm telling you. Super active.
And the names of the groups again? Of the groups again?
Sure. It's Pike Autism Support Services. They go by PASS, and Pocono Autism Society.
Okay.
PASS
so
is really...
If someone were to call 211 or go to 211.org, would they be able to like punch in autism services and these organizations would come up?
I think they do, yes. But they usually then send you all of the behavioral health companies, and
gotcha.
They have weights and there's a process to applying. So you kind of feel like you hit a dead end. So I actually think if I see someone on Pocono Moms or some other page saying, I think my kid might be on the spectrum, I'm seeing these things, I immediately tell them to go to these sites. I tag them and I say, please go get resources from here, talk to the parents here. There's another one called Abilities 21, also amazing. They're kind of out more towards Scranton. These are some good groups where they try to plan events. They usually they all have parent support meetings. Pocono Autism Society has a monthly meeting, and Pike Autism Support Services, I think, has a bi-weekly meeting. Like they have 2 meetings a month.
Right. I'm just trying to think like if somebody went to 211.org, maybe if they put in autism support group, they maybe might not get all the behavioral health agencies. They might just, I'm really
not
think.
Sure, but
I'm going to try it, by the way.
I'm
going to give it a try.
Yeah. That's a great idea. And then I think there is somebody to reach out to, because I remember talking to somebody years ago from there to give them some information. I'm so happy to share this with them, because you're absolutely right. They should be aware of this.
Right. Absolutely.
Because, like I was saying, I have that adult group that meets once a month up in Pike County. And I have people from Monroe who go all the way up, and people from Wayne who come over to it, because it's really the only adult group that for people on the spectrum that's out there. And locally, I mean, there's groups other places, but and then the parent groups, the parents really need support. And my other statement on this is that if you call Pike Autism Support Services office, it is usually manned Monday through Friday, and the woman who founded the organization, it's her mission in life to help. She will sit and walk you through the steps. Probably one of the most amazing people I know. And she founded it because there was no resources when her kid was little. And now they've been around for 30 years. This is their 30th anniversary. So, it's an amazing group. Go ahead.
I find that's where some of the best organizations come from, is somebody that, went through it and they're like, I know what this is all about, been there, done that, wish I had this. So now I'm going to create it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
awesome.
That's what they really did up there. And that's what they really did at Pocono Autism Society too. I mean, it's the same, it's a parent of someone on the spectrum, and it's a special ed teacher. And, that's their board is parents and people who work in the field working together. So.
Right. Now you had talked about the IEP, the individualized education program. When that plan gets put together, who is all involved in that?
So a parent, when the child turns 14, they're asked to be included. So it could be the child, educators. So it would be the teacher, and it would be, they usually have a special ed teacher and a regular ed teacher. And you could have other people, like a behavior specialist, if you're working with one, who would come and talk about behavioral interventions that you think should be added. And then, sometimes they have the principal from the school there, depending on different scenarios, or, sometimes they have the speech therapist or the OT there. They at least have a report where they would come, and the school psychologist is usually there to go over their report. So it is a big group of people.
Right. I think, I was kind of, I kind of had an idea of, who all would be involved. But I'm glad that you said that about like a behavior specialist, because I feel that sometimes just from, talking with people over the decades, that sometimes parents in these meetings felt like they were not being heard.
Yeah.
So, having an advocate there with the parent is perfectly acceptable, correct?
Oh, absolutely. So I am a IEP coach. It doesn't mean too much. I took a training.
No,
I get to carry a certificate.
That's wonderful.
But basically, I try to teach parents the skills so they can manage it on their own. But I do go to meetings with them all the time. I also go to meetings with parents as a behavioral specialist, because if they're on my caseload, I'm going to go and say, this is what my team member is doing, and here's how this might benefit, or let's make sure this is in the IEP so that we're able to take the kid for a walk if he's getting upset, or things like that. Right. Sometimes a school might have a rule, but like let's go with gum chewing. Schools have always tended not to like gum chewing. Say this kid really benefits if they're chewing gum, they're able to focus. We would want that written in the IEP that there's an exclusion from the gum rule. They can chew gum at school. So you make sure that's written in the IEP so that, it's allowed. And when something is written into the IEP, what's really cool about it is it makes it the law. So if a teacher then says, no, you can't have gum, that's the rule. I'm sorry. Why do you get an exclusion? They can't do that. If a teacher was to do that, that would mean the parents legally could go after them and, have a lawsuit.
When the IEP, or the individualized education plan, is created, does that get notarized? I mean, you said it's like a legal document. Like, how does that work? Everybody
signs it? So all the team members sign it, and they all have a copy of it.
Of Independence? No. Sorry.
That's just all the team members sign it, and it is, everybody's got a copy of it, and it is documented in the child's chart at school. The parents have a copy. It is not notarized or anything, but it is very official.
I didn't know. I mean, because you said it was legal. No. I didn't know how far it went.
It is very legal, though. And there are some schools that are very aware of that, and they're very cautious about what they will include. And then there's some schools that are like, yeah, go ahead, put it in. We're going to do it. And
gotcha.
Both ways are right as well. It depends on how it works with all the people that are part of the team,
Right. Okay. So, all right. So we kind of got to kindergarten. So, let's talk a little bit as they age. And then also I want to talk about briefly, because I do want to talk about the speed friending, but talk about like how it works when a child moves into the school district and they already have an IEP, or they already have a diagnosis, which that's probably pretty simple, but I'd like to, I'd just like to hit on that a little bit.
It can be, it depends on the kid. So it is just an IEP. The reason we call it individualized is because it's individualized to how that child learns and what they need.
Right.
So it's not a cookie cutter. So when they get to kindergarten, some kids might go to regular ed kindergarten and just be pulled for speech for, 15 minutes twice a week. And that's all they need. Some kiddos might go into autistic support, but get pulled into typical ed specials. And then they have speech and OT throughout the day, and they have one-on-one teaching. If they're in an autistic support setting, typically it's one-on-one teaching. They're being taught directly. Someone's sitting right across from them. They have a lot of breaks and a lot of downtime so that they have time to, resettle, and then they learn again. And then there's all sorts of places in between. I have a kiddo right now who is in autistic support 30 minutes a day, in learning support maybe 2 hours a day, and then in regular ed the rest of the day. Like they are in all sorts of different settings depending on what their
Right.
needs are. So it's going to look different for everybody. But there are all these different settings. Another thing I have to say about that is it actually looks different in every district too.
Yeah, that's why I said, like, if a child moves into the district and already has an IEP, I'm assuming they're going
to follow the IEP the way it's written. So
okay,
it's kind of cool. I know there's some districts that say we don't provide aids no matter what. We always just put them in a smaller setting because if they need an aid, that typically means to us that they're in the wrong setting, which is not always true. But that's how some districts get out of supplying a one-to-one aid. If the kid comes to your district and has that, and then they have to supply that one-to-one aid until they're done reassessing, which takes, time, and until they're done putting together a new plan. So now the teacher's like, wow, this kid's really benefiting in this setting with the one-to-one aid. And sometimes you see a district kind of turn around and be like, you know what, that really did work for that kid. Maybe it would also work for this kid. And
right.
You could sometimes see some changes. Sometimes a kiddo, especially since we have such a high rate of kiddos who come here from New York, there will be a program in the New York IEP that when they come here, we just don't offer. They try to offer something that's similar until the new assessment's done. They can't deny it and not offer anything, but they can say, we don't offer that, but we offer this instead. So they have to follow the original plan, but then at the same time, they start the assessment process so they can write their own IEP.
So how often is the child reassessed? I mean, because, you can have the IEP from until you graduate. So how often is it reassessed? Because obviously you might have different needs when you're younger in the educational setting versus when you get into middle school. Well, actually, I think middle school is probably because, the hormones in middle school. But then, that could change when I know, right?
So hard.
And every time you say hormones, people think you're talking about sex, and it's not. It's just our chemical makeup. It
could be about emotional feelings and the big feels and all sorts of stuff. Feeling angry and not knowing why.
Yes, that middle school age. It's a whole hormonal. Just throw them out onto the wall and see what sticks that day.
Yeah.
But so an IEP, they can have all the way through graduation. Obviously, that can change as it goes along. So how often is a child reevaluated?
So they're reevaluated they say every 2 years, but it's really on the third year, if that makes sense. You go through 2 years and then they reevaluate again.
Okay.
But you have a meeting every year. And at that meeting, we might say, hey, listen, he's met this goal. We don't need to reevaluate, but we're going to move to the next goal. We're going to move to the next thing.
Right.
You can have as many IEPs as you'd like as a parent. I mean, you don't want to be a jerk and call one every week because the teacher's you're going to get a reputation. Okay. But and then at that point they start to deny you things. You don't want to be that person. But if you don't think this is fitting your child, you can call one and say, let's get together. If you think your child's had a growth spurt and a change in some way, you can call an IEP and they're so happy to accommodate. If there's a new behavior that pops up, you can call another IEP and you can address it there. And it doesn't always have to even be that formal. As we talked about before, the big IEP meeting, if there's a minor change that, say the speech therapist says, hey, they met that goal, they can send out an email to everyone on the team. Do you all agree that we can move on to the next goal? Everybody on the team says, yeah. They write it up. They send it out for the signature. It's added to your IEP. You don't have to have a formal meeting every single time.
Okay.
So there are mini versions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So and like I said, at the age of 14, you start going into the IEP. You can go into the IEP and you really can advocate for yourself at that point. That's also when we start working on your transition plan. So transition to adulthood. What are you going to be doing? Are you going to college? Do you need to be in the work program? Are you going to go to a day program? Well, if you're going to go to one of these things, maybe we can start now and start practicing so you're ready for it. Or if it's for college. Let's make sure you're in the right classes and you're able to, manage that and take you where you need to be.
Right. And it's kind of, ironic. I think, like, I'm going to be 60 and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And at 14, we're asking, which I know, because, when I worked on a college setting, I had students who were so upset because they had to tell their parent that they no longer wanted to study, the course of study that they had originally intended to study, and they were going to, hurt their parents' feeling or their parents' pocketbook, and whatever.
Yeah.
Because
they get in there and they're like, this coursework's not for me. It happens all the time.
I had a student because, I as a social worker, I would take on social work students, and I had a group of students for a whole year. And at the end of the year, when I asked them, what did you really, take out of this, and, how are you going to use this moving forward, blah, blah, blah. And one of the students said, I enjoyed this. This was great. But what I learned from this is that I don't want to be a social worker. So, after a whole year, I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about what you want to do instead.
That's really valid too. That they gave themselves time to really figure out if it's what they liked, and
right.
I think that's good, because if you just go into that first class and it's a turnoff to you because it was challenging one way or the other, you might be misled and leave something you really did want to do and you like.
Right.
Whereas, I like that she gave it a whole year and then she really made an informed decision, truthfully.
Right. Absolutely. No, absolutely.
And I know what you're saying about 14-year-olds not knowing what they want to do. It really has less, I hate to say it this way, it has less to do with those kids that are college bound, though it does, because we can make up plans. We can make sure there's interventions in place so that they can get there. It has more to do with those kiddos who are not college bound, who are going to need additional supports. And that way their parents are going to be given the information of what grants to apply for.
Sure.
The work program, I'm with a kiddo in a work program at one of the schools in Monroe County, and it's amazing. And they take the kids to all different workplaces and have them practice to see what they like and what clicks. And they don't just take them once and they have a bad experience and they never take them again. They make them go back a number of times and keep trying to see, like, maybe, and I do have the kiddo that I work with, the first day doing it was like, no, this is too much. And now really likes the setting that they're in.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So they really try to, the OVR gives you an assessment. OVR is the Office of Vocational something with an R.
Rehabilitation.
Sure. Rehabilitation. And, they'll give a young adult who has a diagnosis of something. It doesn't have to be autism. My dog is so interested in being part of this. No, honey.
It's funny because I can't even hear your dog. So
good,
it's all good.
So the OVR will give you an assessment and it breaks all these things down, and it's a really good assessment, except that it's really long. And if you have someone on the spectrum, it's boring. So it's very hard to keep them motivated to do it. And I don't know that it always comes out with the best answers for all of the kiddos. It's really good for someone who maybe has certain problems one way or the other, but sometimes it's not the best for everybody. That being said, they can at least guide you a little bit, and they might say, hey, it looks like you'd be really good at office work, or you'd be really good at matching things, depending on, obviously severity and everything like that. So if you're really good at that stuff, then they can say, okay, here's some of the places that have agreed. It's really cool. The work programs, I don't know if it's across all of them, but I know one of the work programs that I've been working with, OVR gives the places that hire the students, they pay for them. So if they're working at the local supermarket or the Tractor Supply or places like that, Tractor Supply is training them, or the supermarket is training them and letting them work there and giving them skills. OVR is paying for it. So those places are now open to it. They're like, oh, someone to work here for free, we're in.
Right. So when you say paying for it, they pay like the entire salary, like they pay
the entire thing,
including like if they were full time and they had benefits.
No, they're going for like 2 hours a day.
Right.
a couple days a
Gotcha.
week. Yeah.
Okay.
They're just learning. So then they practice. By the time they get to, they graduate from high school, they are then looking to be hired by that organization. But now say you worked at the grocery store or the local office in an office job, and you've worked there for 2 hours a day, kind of in an intern kind of way for the last, 2 years. They might be like, hey, we love that person. Let's hire them. They already know the job. So it's a win-win situation.
Right. And to be honest, I feel like anybody at their first day at a new job might feel overwhelmed to be like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to get this. I felt that way walking into my my master's level internship for the first day. And I'm like, I'm practically in tears. And then, it's actually the field I ended up going into. So yeah, I think it's wonderful. And I know that, we have some great employers here in the Pocono region that are involved in that.
Yeah, I'm hoping more will sign up. Like I said, it doesn't do anything negative for them to do it.
Right.
And it does disappoint me sometimes when a kiddo's like, I really want to work at this place, and that place isn't one of the places that'll sign up for it. I understand.
Right.
Sometimes it's a smaller business and they're like, I don't have the time to train somebody. And I get that. And so it's very valid. It's not people being mean, but I am asking if anybody hears this, if your business is not doing it, consider it, because I know these job coaches from the school districts ask everywhere. They're like, hey, do you want one of my kiddos this year? So please consider it. You're going to meet a great person.
Absolutely. So what would the program, what is the actual name of the program, like the work program? Is there an actual name?
Now it's probably different at every school.
Gotcha.
Like one school, it's the 18 and over program. And when you have an IEP, you are allowed to attend school to the age of 21.
Right.
So, now that I think about it, in 3 of the districts in this county, in Monroe County, between the age of 18 and 21, they're typically bringing you out to a work program. So, and I know the most famous one around here is the Kalahari one, but Shawnee does stuff with kiddos. They do a lot of really good stuff.
Right.
Lots of places around here.
If you're a business owner and you're watching this and you would like to be involved in this program, this work program, you basically would contact your school district and ask to speak to the job coach or.
Yeah, that would work. Absolutely.
Yeah, there we go, guys. Come on, guys and gals. That would be
you would be
excellent.
able to get someone that would work for you, again, for free. And, have different opportunities. You might have a couple kiddos who come and you find the one that works best. And guess what? If they learn the job, you might have a really great, loyal employee, because if they learn it, that is something that's said about people on the spectrum. There are some businesses that really look for people on the spectrum because of the affinity for routine and doing things the right way. They tend to be very good employees. So
absolutely. And like I coach sports, and I had a girl with autism who's on the spectrum on my basketball team for quite a few years. And she had the best technique with her shots of any of my players.
It's a theory I have about our best football players and our best baseball players. I do feel there might be a little touch of the spectrum in some of those really great players, because to focus that hard on throwing a football and hitting one spot over and over, you have to have some level of dedication that does not exist in a typical human.
Right. Now, again, but the flip side to that was, if we were running a play, step 1 is this, step 2 is that, step 3 is this. Okay. That was fine. If we were like kind of just all freestyle because, the play fell apart, and it's like, okay, use your basketball, like your basketball IQ, basically at that point. That was more difficult until like toward the end, that she had gotten so much better with that. And
that's all it takes. Exactly what you just said is practice. Learning that it's okay to play for fun and it doesn't always have to be for a score. Learning that it's okay to do it differently. then yes, this is the technique that we've learned. This is the way you should do it. But if it's not possible and you still can make the shot, go for the shot.
Right.
Just learning that. But it does take time, and people being very patient with them on that flexibility.
Right. Now, we have definitely focused a lot on kids, and and I'm glad that we did,
because the programs are most of the programs out there in the world are for kids.
Right. And like I said, even just listening to the process, I felt overwhelmed, and I'm not in that process.
Mm-hmm.
But just to have it explained better and know that there are groups and people and organizations, just individuals who've been through it, that can be a mentor or an advocate, that can walk you through the process is tremendous. It's just tremendous. And I feel that, like knowing this, knowledge is power, and I think that's a great asset for the community to have. But, I do want to talk about adults, and I do want to talk about this speed friending. But, so you said that you have support groups for adults who are on the spectrum.
Yeah, I'm muted because the dog's barking.
Now I can hear the dog, but it doesn't bother. It doesn't bother us. Listen, we've had babies on the show, so it's all good.
All right, let's see how this goes.
Sit, Ubu, sit.
He's been quiet the whole time, but all right.
No, he's good. He's good.
The first thing, like I said, is the last Thursday of I'm so sorry. I already messed this up. The fourth Thursday of every month, there is an adult, neurodivergent adult group that meets in Pike County at the Milford Community House. It is free to anybody who wants to come. They always have pizza and soda, and it's a nice group. It changes a lot. We have like 5 or 6 core people, but then we have revolving 5 or 6 people who come now and then, or someone who's new. So it's definitely a nice place that we talk about anything and everything.
Right.
So one of the themes that kept coming up was, I don't know where to meet girls or guys since I graduated high school or I graduated college. Most of the people in the group either had not dated someone or had dated someone when they were in school. And they were like, but then we graduated and we broke up because it was natural, but I haven't figured out how to meet someone else. And I felt like the conversation every single month went back to this. We would start with jobs, we would start with finances, whatever it was, and it would end with, but I really want to meet somebody. So we had planned, and we talked about love on the spectrum because everybody's watching it, so we were like, okay, well, we could try to do something like that. And we had decided we wanted to do speed dating, and we had made up some, criteria, and we said, all right, between these ages, and let's go. And what happened was I don't remember, maybe it was 16 guys and 2 girls signed up.
Oh, no.
And I went and I asked everybody, what do you think? Do you still want to do it? And everybody was like, well, maybe. And I was like, what if we just made it speed friending? And that's what we changed it to speed friending that day. And people walked out with each other's numbers. Everybody's like, that person was so cool. I want to hang out with them. And I said, here's the thing. You know that you want to meet someone and they want to meet someone. Be each other's wingman and go out together. Now you have a friend to go meet people.
Right.
So now, I know that you were uncomfortable going to that cooking class or that, that bar. I mean, I have adults, and now you have someone to go with you. So you're not there alone and you have a buddy that can go. So everybody was like, that's a great idea. And it evolved from there to just be speed friending. And some people were like, oh, I actually had that happen. I have someone I'm dating, but I need to make some more friends. I don't know anybody but that person. So that's how speed friending was born. The first couple sessions we had up in Pike County, Pike Autism Support Services were the ones who kind of backed me and said, let's do it. And they are so wonderful. They really arranged everything, got me a place to do it. They're amazing.
Nice.
So
Nice.
when we did it, the other thing that we found out really was that people did not have this. Everyone would exchange phone numbers and said that they wanted to meet, but they then didn't do it. And I just think, so I made this is the funniest thing, I think. I made a group text that people get added to, and we all chat in there. And then I remind people, oh, that conversation you guys are having, that's like a private conversation. You guys should text privately. And they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, yeah. So
No, that's awesome.
It's one of my step ups, to doing it independently. And it has like really been. Go ahead.
I would say like a to-do list, that they go home with. It says, okay, call your new friend by this date, and
so I have started doing like a little mini class at the beginning of it to kind of remind people also of text messaging etiquette. I did have, a very nice, well-intentioned person who wanted to impress that person. So they texted them too many times and maybe too much personal stuff. Okay. And that went a little awry. And so it's that other end of it, exactly what you just said. I'm teaching a little class at the beginning, so I will add that. I love that idea. That's a great one. What to do after. Now that you've gotten some friends' phone numbers, text them,
right.
Say happy birthday if you think it's their birthday, that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's a great idea.
Hey, it was so great to talk to you. I love that we talked about, blah.
Oh, I'm definitely doing that because now I have an event coming up on August 3rd, and this one is being run by Pocono Autism Society, and we're going to have it at the Cinder Inn right in East Stroudsburg.
Okay, sure.
You're going to have to sign up through the Pocono Autism Society. But I know, sweetie. I'm right here. You sign up through the Pocono Autism Society. They're going to be sending out emails and they have their page. I do not know if they are charging a fee or not. I know Pike Autism Support Services, when they do it, they usually charge about $10. It helps keep people coming because I think this is one of those situations when you sign up, you might get nervous at the last minute and be like, I don't want to go. But if you paid something, you're going to be like, nope, I paid something, I'm going. Right,
absolutely. That's a tried and true tested, philosophy.
And then the other factor is that they are going to be, I know the Pocono Autism Society is going to be getting, sodas for everybody. They're paying for the facility, so there are some fees into it. So I do think they'll probably charge something, but we don't have that information yet.
Right.
But
so if people are
it's going to be
social media, if they're on Facebook, they can go to the Pocono Autism
Society
Facebook page, Pocono Autism
Facebook
Society
page, or they have a website. Both Pocono Autism Society and Pike Autism Support Services have regular websites that you can sign up for their emails, so you can get their email blasts.
And I'll make sure that, I'll find the flyer for it and I'll put it in the comments here.
Awesome.
On this link on our YouTube site. And we can even put it up on our website, the Empowerment Network website as well. So people can check it out there. I'll put it on Mental Health
The ad was just approved.
Mondays.
So as soon as I get it, I'll send it over to you.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. And we will take care of that. And I will help promote that because, I think it's a great, I just think it's a great way.
Me too.
For people to make
that's what we
friends.
were saying before. They have, the first time I had given everybody like some different questions to ask each other so that if you didn't know what to ask, you had some ideas. And now I've started doing different themed questions. So different tables will have different themed questions.
Okay.
And sometimes we'll have, where everybody just does one-to-one. And that's probably how I'm going to do it on the 3rd. But every now and then, if we get an odd number of people, we'll do one group that's a group of 3 or 4 so that it's actually a little more comfortable to have a conversation when you're in a bigger group.
Right. I agree.
There's different cross conversation versus that one-on-one, which can be a little intimidating at times.
Sure. and just making sure that everyone actually stays involved in the conversation as well.
Yeah. And the real goal is for everyone to meet everyone that's come that night. So again,
Right.
even if we had 9 girls and 9 guys, you're going to meet 17 other people if there's 18.
Exactly. This is so awesome. Michelle, I was so happy to have you with us tonight on Mental Health Mondays with Hope.
Thank you.
We've learned a lot about autism, but I'm really super excited to help you promote and help share this speed friending event that you're going to have here in Monroe County in our home community on August 3rd. I can't wait to share it and hopefully, get the word out and get people there to meet new friends.
Can't wait. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you for joining us, Michelle, and everyone who's watching. Please click subscribe and join the PA Empowerment Network and be a subscriber. And we'll see you next week. It's going to be another great show next week. Everyone have a great week.
It's Mental Health Monday with Hope, a sanctuary where hearts can find solace. Together, we stand strong, united in our journey, discovering the strength within ourselves. Have no fear, for we're not alone.